And we are live. Welcome, you guys. Welcome, 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 wherever you are watching from. I'm Chantal with Growing Up Without Borders. If those of you guys who don't know us yet, I already see there's some people coming in. So welcome. Today we have a special episode that we are doing today where we are going to be live with a dear friend of ours from the Ukraine. And this is Orest. I'm just going to make sure that everything is okay and that you guys can see everyone okay. Give me one moment as we get started. So here we go, Orest, you are on live as well with me. I'm going to give you a little introduction, and I think I have a little bit of a glitch because I'm seeing only myself on the screen and I should be seeing the two of us with the service I am using. So give me one moment while I just make sure we are doing the right thing here. I should be seeing both of us. Apologies for this. While you guys are coming in, let us know where you're watching from. And I'm going to quickly introduce Orest because he is right now in Ukraine. And as most of you guys know, they're in a crazy war with Russia. Don't need to say that. I met Orest through the digital nomad community, which a lot of you know what a digital nomad is, but for those of you who don't, they're people who work online, and Orest as well works online and travels around the world. So he's very well in the know, and we can relate when it comes to travel and such. Right now, he's been in Ukraine since the beginning of this crazy time, and he's in a city called Lviv. And we were actually in Lviv a while back when our girls were quite young. It was back in 2015, and the city is absolutely beautiful. They have stunning architecture. It's Europe, right? So everything's beautiful, everything that you see. And we just absolutely loved our time there. So I'm going to leave that with you right now. I'm going to quickly let Orest introduce himself. And I am going to make sure I have the correct settings for our Zoom link so that Orest appears as well. So hi, Orest. Thanks for coming today.
Hello. Thanks for having me. It's a big honor to speak to all of you guys. Yes. And my name is Orest. I'm native to Ukraine. I was born and raised in Lviv. And so far, being a digital nomad for the last 10 years, I visited over 120 countries around the world. However, when this war was anticipating, and knowing that, by my own intention, I came back home a couple of days before the war just started, because I wanted to be with my family, with my people. Like, this is the tough time that you have to live through, and definitely. I remember the recent revolution in Ukraine back in 2014. Yes, that most of you probably remember as well. I was in Mexico as a digital nomad. I felt stuck there, and it was the worst feeling, like one of the worst feeling of my life. Just being on the different continent, watching anxiously on the news what is happening in your country. So this time I firmly decided I'm not going to miss this historical event. And I really want to be part of this historical movement. And when the war actually started, I made sure that my family is safe, like most of them are now abroad. And I stay in Ukraine, in Lviv, and took a mission to document everything what's happening here from my own local perspective. And also to use all my international network of friends, colleagues, and other contacts in order to spread the word and in order to make my own contribution towards our resistance and our future victory.
That's awesome. I know a lot of people, they know where the Ukraine is. I always say the Ukraine. I don't know why I say it like that. I know most people say where Ukraine is. But for those of the people who don't know, so can you maybe explain geographically all the details? Because for us, when we drove through, we came in from Moldova and we went up and then over to Lviv. The roads were absolutely crazy. This is 2015, so I don't know if it's changed. And at the time, because Russians had already taken over a little portion, right, of Ukraine.
I'll explain everything.
You'll explain everything.
Yeah, so
Perfect.
first of all, the roads improved a lot since 2015.
Good.
because
Good.
2014 was a critical point in our history. It was like the time when the country like stated on the constitutional level that we are moving towards West. Yes, that association agreement with European Union and other like progressive movements. So basically all the infrastructure started to improve a lot in the last 8 years. And at the moment before the war, Ukraine had amazing roads. It's easy and fast to travel all around. So so you missed this period, but I'm sure once all this mess is over, you'll come back and enjoy our beautiful country, which will be even better than it was before. So
100%.
now I will share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
I will share my screen just for you to. I need to do something in the preferences. Wait.
While you're doing that, I'm going to explain a little bit. When we were there, our Chloe was quite young, and we had crossed back over into Poland. And at the time, there was already a big, huge lineup of trying to get through, because Poland had a little bit of this like feeling of uneasiness because of what happened in 2014. And so getting through the border was one of the longest processes. They were checking every single car, looking at everything. And so I can't even imagine what it must be like right now. It would be days trying to cross that border. Has it improved a little bit or not at all?
Yeah, definitely situation now improved. And I just like shared my window. Probably you are seeing this now. Yes.
Yep.
So in terms of the maps, yes. So the borders, they're now much better, because Ukrainians don't need visas to European Union since 2016, which made a massive improvement. So the border checkings are not so strict as they used to be in 15. And now, I mean, we have the Ryanair, Wizz Air, all these cheap airlines. It got like very well integrated into the Europe in general. So for those of you guys who are not really sure where Ukraine is, this is the map of the world, right? This is Europe. This is Europe. And in the eastern side of Europe, you have a huge country, Ukraine.
Massive
I'm already
country.
giving you hints with some military actions, but this is Ukraine. Just for you to understand, Ukraine is the largest European country. It is it's almost twice the size of Germany. So the distance from west to east is approximately 1,300 kilometers. It takes 2 days to drive this. From north to south is 1,000 kilometers. So basically, Ukraine is bordering on the west such European EU countries as Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, and Moldova, which is not EU, but it's still like our friendly country. On the north is the puppet state of Russia, Belarus. And then we have a huge 2,000-kilometer border with Russia. Since 2014, Russia is occupying Crimean Peninsula in the south, and this section, the red one, like in the east, is the Donbas area. It's also like it's a conflict zone since 2014 with the daily casualties and daily daily shootings. So basically, the war started in 2014, not like 2 weeks ago. It's something that people forget, actually. So for all this time, there were like activities in the east, but now it just went into the really crazy phase, right, that we are going to talk about. And the brutality of destruction which is happening now is simply impossible to imagine for the normal modern person in the 21st century. So this was about the geography, right? Then I am now located in Lviv. It's a city in the west. There it is. It's very, very west. It's 1 hour drive to the Polish border. And it feels like pretty far away from the military action. So for example, Kyiv, like the central north part, which is the capital of Ukraine. In the normal days, it's a 6 to 7 hours drive on the highway. Yeah, so it's like 1.5 hours by like 1 hour by plane. So it's still pretty far.
Yeah,
And the military action now is happening all the way here along the eastern border, and there are like substantial territories that are now occupied, like the large portion of the south. They are getting under siege some of the large cities. There are shellings, like for example, the second biggest city of Ukraine, Kharkiv, receives like a destructive amount of shellings. And as the consequence of that, approximately 4 million people are displaced from their homelands. Approximately 2 million people left the country to the European Union. And
just to give perspective, sorry, Orest, to give perspective, right now where we're staying, we're in a country of, let's say, 5 million, right? That would be like the whole country of New Zealand either has left or has been displaced to another part of the country, which is unbelievable, right? Like
it's unbelievable. I would like to remind you that Ukraine is not only large by area, it's also a highly populated country. So we are 44 million people,
Yeah.
So that's it's one of the biggest countries in Europe in general. And even comparing to Russia, which is around 120 million people, Ukraine is only a third of the Russian population. But if you take the size of Russia and size of Ukraine, even though Ukraine is the largest in Europe, it's still relatively small comparing to the size of Russia. So the density of population of Ukraine is much, much, much bigger than the Russian density population. And there is simply, we will talk about this more. So in my area where I live in Western Ukraine, basically from every village, you can see other village. Like every 3-4 kilometers, you have a village. Like you cannot just drive on the open fields. In the south of Ukraine, it's a little bit more sparsely populated. Here in the west center is very densely populated area. And that's why the advancement of Russian militaries is not going actually very well. Because I will continue sharing here.
Yes, go for it.
Events. So how the war started. Yeah. So everybody remember this crazy, terrible morning news. February 24th, Russian military forces, now just imagine, launched 70 missiles attacks within a couple of hours all around the country. So you sleep, yes, and at one moment, different, like mostly 70 different military objects all around the country, as you see on this map, are targeted. Can you just imagine what is the scale of panic that creates in the country because of this? Even like in the West, where we stay 1,000 kilometers from the Russian border, just the single idea that somebody from Kursk or Belgorod can shoot a rocket and they target exactly like this very airport. Like it puts like crazy fear into you. Like for the next couple of days, you have the feeling that the next rocket will be going into yourself. Absolutely. And that's what happened. People started to panic. Within minutes, people rush to the ATM to get cash. You buy some water because you think there'll not be any water. All the cars started to drive to the petrol stations, trying to fill up petrol in case they'll need to run away. So for this like 1-2 days, it was crazy panic all around the country. Obviously, at that very moment, you just think on the very basic instinct survival level, nothing else. You care about food, about finances, about some medical stuff, about your family, and about your nearest friends. That's it. Like nothing else bothers you, believe me. Now, when I roll back in my memory, even though it was only like 2 weeks ago, I still cannot believe it, that it's really happened.
Oh, I'm sure you're still in shock. It's a pretty huge trauma to go through and have that kind of level of anxiety over so many days and not knowing when there's going to be an end or how it's going to end or what in the world's going to happen. So that would just be a massive amount of, like I said, anxiety and worry.
It's impossible to explain the stress you're getting, and also it's impossible unless somebody felt a war in their home. They cannot never feel it. Like not a single best produced war movie can give you these feelings that you're experiencing when there is real threat and when your country is at war. Like, believe me, you can watch millions of movies, you can play a lot of, take the glasses of virtual reality. It's uncomparable. But now when in the couple of days you had the shock, then next following days we were doing the security stuff with our family. And when all these things passed, like on the second week, you start processing. You lose a lot of weight during this time. Couple of times per day when there are airstrike alarms, you have to go down to the bunker, going up. Which is also not very pleasant experience. So for the first couple of days, I was waking up because of the airstrike alarm, and you sleep, you like poof, and you have your bag that everything is packed inside. You just take it and you go down. And we are talking about living in the world-class travel destination with amazing architecture inside and boutique coffee shops and restaurants around. It doesn't come to the mind really.
No.
So when after like a week this mess is happening and you eventually start to process feelings and thoughts, and you realize that the likelihood of death in the next hour is relatively low.
Jeez.
You start to put yourself together. Like I call to my colleagues because I'm running a digital company. They all are scattered around different cities around Ukraine because we have a remote team. You call to them, how are they doing? They also had similar experience, right? And slowly you come things together. There are now fierce fighting in eastern Ukraine and around Kiev. So the entire system gets more structured. Somebody is going to the war, somebody is enrolling into the self-defense civil units, somebody is volunteering, somebody is doing logistics, somebody is joining the cyber army, somebody is doing media. Believe me, everybody is busy. It's not boring at all. And the speed of life increased 10 times at least.
So you feel like everything got like really fast, everyone kind of pulling together.
You're processing like 100 phone calls a day. Somebody needs something, you recommend them, you go, you do this, you do that. You're always like on alert. You always pick up the phone because somebody needs help. You need to speak to people. You need to coordinate this.
That's crazy.
I am sleeping like last 3 nights. I already slept maybe 6-7 hours. For the first 10 days, it was 2-3 hours of sleep per day. It was very bad. It's like psychologically, you're getting really, really down. And even though I always slept very well, but those are not the conditions where you can just lie in bed. No. So I started taking some pills, but now I am kind of recovering from this because situation in my area of the country more or less is stabilizing.
So you feel a little bit more at ease where you are being so far west at the moment?
Yeah. Like of course, because of the geographical distance, yes. Also, the city recovered. So far, my city has not been bombarded. Absolutely, not a single touch the wood rocket came to my city. Other cities in the vicinity, let's say of 2, 3, even 4 hours drive, were targeted only within the military objects. Yes. But these destructions that are happening in the east is simply mind-blowing. So the biggest challenge, what we are facing now in Lviv, for example, is processing all the refugees who are coming, because this is the biggest hub of Western Ukraine. And millions of people are driving, taking trains, buses, evacuating from the east. So just for you to understand, the normal population of my city is 850,000 people.
Okay.
Nowadays, we have 200,000 refugees extra.
Wow.
So I'm talking about 25%, like the quarter population. So it's really big pressure on the local economy and the local infrastructure. Our city council is doing our best. As I told, every citizen who stayed in the city is engaged into some kind of war-related activity. And so we are processing refugees who come to Lviv to accommodate them here, to continue to forward people to other European countries, or spread them around the countryside of Western Ukraine. Yeah. So
it's still the case.
Really dense.
I was going to say it's still the case where men can't leave the country, correct?
Correct. Because of the martial law, men at the age between 18 and 60 cannot leave. Because they are like, there was not still like a total mobilization, yes, but I mean they had to stay in the country in order to serve in the army or do other kind of activities. So definitely, like, what are the activities that people are doing? So of course we have the army, Ukrainian National Army, which is like the professional army, or those people who were serving during their period of 2 years to serve.
Is it mandatory? Is it mandatory like other countries?
Yeah. In Ukraine, we were already going towards professional army, but since 2014 and the Russian aggression, it became mandatory again. Yeah.
Okay.
So this one, then there are people in the reserve. So those who served for 2 years, so they were in the reserve, and now they're called again. And then we have some kind of like paramilitary units, which means that volunteers who want to fight, who want to take armor in hands, they apply in a military organization, like military institutions, state military institutions, and they are being formed to make these paramilitary units, and they are helping Ukrainian army. Yes. So this, and also like the third tier are like civil defense units, and civil defense units are those that protect the city. So they are also formed, they get training, they are patrolling the city, and in case of the invasion to the city, they stay in the city. They don't go to the front line. So that is how it works. It's pretty well organized, I must say. I'm surprised. Another thing that everybody is surprised, that now it's impossible to apply. Like there are already so many people, you cannot even apply to be part of those paramilitary units or self-defense units. So the entire situation that happened in Ukraine like really united people a lot. From the social media, you can see how high is our spirit, that everybody is contributing, and this was like very like a game-changing fact for Russia, for Russian invasion, that Ukrainians like put like super fierce resistance, because according to the initial Russian plan, it was very simple. You do the bombardment all around the country, you create a mess, and then within a couple of days, you advance to the capital, Kyiv, that is now like getting under siege, for example. You overthrow the government and you put the puppet government. That was like the plan to finish the war in 1 week. As we now see, this didn't happen. The war is far from the end. Russian army is like facing fierce resistance on all parts of the country. And because of this fast reaction of Ukrainians, we received tremendous support from the entire world. And what we are witnessing now is unprecedented scenario in the humankind history. Never ever happened something like this, what is happening at the moment. I'm talking about the absolutely global mutual support of one country and absolute negative relation to the other country, because now things are really obvious. We really see who is aggressor, who is the underdog, who's protecting themselves. Yeah.
That's amazing. Absolutely crazy because, first of all, I want to give a big shout out to your channel. So it's just Orest Zub. I'm going to put it in the description notes because he's been, for those of you guys watching, he's been sharing what he's been going through. So the very first few days, we saw Orest and his family going into the bunker. They were showing us everything. And like you said, you can see it, but to go through what you're going through, we don't have the emotion and the fear that comes upon you when something like that is happening. But you've been amazing at showing. You were showing in the beginning all the people getting their money out of the ATMs. You were showing how your city in Lviv is more or less okay and, not being attacked at the moment, but we were able to follow kind of every step of the way. So yeah, please bring up your channel there. So it's been really helpful for a lot of people. You can go there and see some of the different videos that he's been producing. And it's just amazing. I don't know if you want to share anything there. The one that was quite emotional and had probably a lot of people in tears was when you had to displace your grandmother. And I know in your country and many European countries, when your parents are still alive, they don't really go to a home, and so you have to.
I don't hear you.
You don't hear me anymore. Does everybody else hear me?
Now, yes.
Yeah. Oh, that was weird. I was just saying how when you had to displace your grandma, yeah, you're going to show the clip. That was pretty crazy. Why don't you play a couple of minutes there of that? And then, by the way, I'll go through some of the questions or comments that you guys have as well. Let us know if you have questions. I know a lot of people are just saying hello and letting us know where you're watching from. Donald in South Africa, David Monroe. Yeah, John Dennis is cool. Malcolm, Kiora. Madison, we've got people from around the world watching, but yeah, we've got a lot of different things here going on. Prayers out to Ukraine. But go ahead and ask if you have any questions. What is your thoughts on, and by the way, did you want to share that video really fast? Or no, where you just kind of pop it up?
Let me try. I'm not sure if it will work, but for example, like it was very emotional for me, and entire like story that I'm creating is also like the documenting of a real life events of one family, which is going through this like really turbulent time. So I think it's very valuable in comparison to like the big media headlines that everybody's seeing. So I see like this is my mission, my part, and I hope it will also serve for some archives in the future, because it's really hard to do this under such circumstances, and like no way like people who are not prepared technically can do something like this. I must say. So this is let me try. And in order to be mobile with my father, with Marta, we are bringing Granny to the nursing home, so she can stay there, and we are able, to move around quickly in case if needed. Yeah. Kid, no. Give us to film, please. Voila! My granny looks super cool. Бабцю, гарно виглядаєш. Beautiful. Father was not able to help her by himself, so he asked me to come. This is the apartment where I grew up. And I was between 3 and 16 years I lived here. And now, my granny has a very tragic story. When this goes away, I will tell you. This is her room. My grandfather died a couple of years ago. And from here, she has a view to the church that she can look and pray. Lately, our cat, Milka was the best friend of my grandmother. And this is the sewing machine.
see, it's a Zinker style, like very old. Maybe 10 years ago, my grandmother was still fine, and she wears things for me. Let's make her bed. Hoping we'll come here again. Okay, Grandma, Babcu, we are going for the trip. Let's go. Let's have a ride. So this.
And at the time, you were saying you weren't sure if you were going to see her or what the situation was going to be. How are things now?
So it was the most emotional feeling I ever had in my life, I believe. Because I mean, I grew up in this apartment, and my granny was always taking care of me and so on. So, and it was still this, you know, it was this stressful time when everybody was leaving the city. So just 2 days before this event, my mother and two of my sisters, they managed to evacuate from the country after 3 days of driving around Western Ukraine looking for the feasible border crossing, because there were just like millions of people and terrible traffic. So we were still very alert, you know, and taking care of grandmother was the final housekeeping project, if you can tell like this, because if there is some danger, and even that area where I grew up, where she stays, is very close to the airport. It's 10 minutes walking distance to the airport, right? So if something happens there and she's old and she's stuck and we cannot get there, that would be a very bad situation. So my father found a place in one of the nursing homes, which is not easy, right? In such circumstances, arranged a place for her there. And it was still like this feeling that, okay, now we are putting our granny home and tomorrow we leave. Maybe we leave, or maybe there's something happening. So it was very, very sad for me. However, like since that time, situation stabilized in the city. My granny is in the nursing home and we can simply come and visit her. So it's absolutely fine, it's calmed down. And I think it's even will be better for her there because my mother was staying with her, right? And helping with food, with everything. But now my mother is abroad. So, I mean, the only option would be just driving there, which is quite like half an hour drive from the city center towards the airport. You know, it's better for everybody for her to stay in the hospital. And the hospital is 20 minutes on foot from my apartment where I live. So I don't even have to take a car to get there.
That's fantastic.
So this is, yeah. This is much better situation. And because of this, everybody is much relaxed now.
And your mom and sisters, which country were they able to get into?
So they are in Hungary, in Budapest at the moment. The initial plan was different. So when the war started, because of my network of friends all around, I received at least 100 invitations, you know, from different locations, which is like very cool. I'm grateful. I was building my network. I was trying to be the good man for the last 10 years, speaking with people, traveling around.
You've been to 120 countries. And so I know the feeling you end up with friends all around the world. And so you would have.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, you know, that's like one of those classical stories when you just conduct an honest and good life, and when help is needed, it comes. Like that the feeling I really received. So out of all of those options that were around, I spoke with my friend from Poland. He's living in like a town in eastern Poland, which is just, you know, 150 kilometers from Lviv, just across the border. And we arranged and even like 2 weeks before the war, he wrote to me like, Orest, I know there are things heating up in Poland. Just for you to know, I am here. I will always help you. You can come. And he was like my best mate across the border. So we always drink when I go there. I stay. He comes to Lviv often. I mean, we are very close friends. Yeah. So now when this happened, definitely we spoke, and he told like, yes, I provide my entire house to your family. Come anytime. And this was our plan. Yes. So when the war started, for the first couple of days, you still like, you don't want to leave now, right? I mean, you have everything, all your property, business, people. I mean, you cannot. It's really hard just to stand up and go. So for the first few days, nobody was considering an option to go. But the worst is, all these like airstrike alarms. So for example, you sleep, and then in the middle of the night, you have the airstrike alarm. It goes on your app. It's a terrible sound from the street, like in movies, like woo, and
Crazy.
Everybody has to go up, stand up, take your emergency bag, where you have everything, all your documents, like all the necessities that you are able to just leave, right? And you go down to the bunker. And once you do this couple of times per day, within a few days, your head, you start going crazy. And especially traumatic for children, because you have to explain them why you should go down. Children cry, it's uncomfortable. And my sister, who has a 2-year-old son, she decided like, we cannot handle this anymore. So first they went to our countryside house, which is half an hour drive from the city.
Mm-hmm.
But then they thought like, I mean, who knows what's happened after that? Yes. And so they eventually decided, together with my mother and with my another teenage old sister, she's 13 years old, just to pack everybody in the car. And my sister, my nephew, mother, and another sister, they just sit on the car and went to the west, the Polish border. The problem was that millions of people were trying to do the same. And every checkpoint along the western border, I can show you just for you to realize how, like, what the war like really brings. Let me see this picture.
I'm going to pop out the chat again. So if you guys have questions, go ahead and ask, and I'll make sure to reply to you guys.
I just want to, I'm staying here. I'm not going anywhere. So I'll answer all of your questions. So like, this is the situation, you see like there is Lviv in the like down left, right corner. And then you have the border with Poland, and every highway to the Poland is like jammed. And I'm talking about the traffic jams of 30-40 kilometers. So it took people to wait for 30 hours, for 2 days to wait. And definitely you cannot do this with a young child. You can get out of petrol, and then what? It can get
cold. So it's not like it's warm weather. So you're technically freezing in the car.
It's freezing temperature at night.
Yeah.
So it's not so easy. And this is a mess. People are angry, stressed. Many of them are driving for like 40 hours without any sleep from eastern Ukraine. So what they did, because of such pressure on the checkpoints, Poland announced that they will be opening new checkpoints, because there are some like old border crossings that were not in use, but there was a road coming. So they thought like, okay, like we can do this. And having this information, my sister and mother, they went to the nearest village to the possible prospect border crossing, stayed there in the old house, cooking on the stove, and like living in the Middle Ages for 2 nights, but nothing was happening. So eventually they decided, okay, like let's go south. Let's go. It was another like drama. I will show you on the map. Yeah.
You got to understand too, it's not just the traffic jam, it's that they're checking every single car coming through. So the process is not like a fast border crossing where you just show your passport and you go through.
No, there's millions of people. So this is Ukraine, yeah. And they were like somewhere here along the western border waiting. but then they realized they can wait there like forever. And they decided to make their move to go south, crossing the Carpathian Mountains, and then crossing to Hungary. So it was like that day, Google Maps stopped working. Like now you can see, like we have only this kind of map. We cannot do you cannot see traffic on the map, like nothing. And another difficult part is that.
So they shut that down for security reasons, so that
it
right,
looks like it. Looks like it. And another like worst thing is that the road signs that show you direction towards the cities are also covered, to disorienteer the possible aggressor who will come to unknown location, right? So I had to stay on the phone with my sister, who was already stressed enough and exhausted, and by my memory and by looking on the map on the computer, tell her where to go in the middle of the night. It's unbelievable. It was very, very bad. Eventually, they crossed the border to Hungary somewhere in the middle of the night and just booked some hotel. I know, like they slept somewhere across the border. And then I thought to myself, like, okay, they're like super stressed now, tired. Why would they go to like again the same direction just along the border from the European Union side, like across Slovakia back to Poland, if there is Budapest 3 hours drive?
Yeah.
And I have a friend in Budapest. So another reason for that was Poland received already 2 million, like over 1 million refugees. So it's a mess on itself in this country too. So I called my friend in Budapest, with whom I had a dinner just 3 weeks ago, because I visited Budapest, and he's my good friend since like 12 years ago, and told him like, this is the situation. So he answered, Orest, no problem. Give me their contact. I will take care of everything.
That's amazing.
I was sure that he will help. So fortunately, he had like an extra apartment which was empty in a good location, well furnished. Wow. Now they are staying there. So my friend also has a young kid, so they gave like the baby car to my sister. You know, they really made everything possible for them to feel better. So after a couple of days, my family recovered, and they are now in Budapest, you know, doing some paperwork with the embassy and just reconsidering what to do next. Yeah. So that's the long story short. So
how do you feel? I guess you don't know, but what? I guess this is a stupid question, but what do you feel might be the outcome? Or you probably have hopes for the best, but what do you actually feel might happen
in the war?
Yeah, like getting your family back, and I mean, there's so many people. There's so many people displaced that they're not going to be able to go back to their homes. It's been some of their homes completely destroyed.
There are different scenarios, right? There are different scenarios, and I mean, there are worst case scenarios, best case scenarios, and something in between. I mean, the best case scenario is Ukraine completely recovers its territories, even all the way back to 2014, kicks out Russians, and Russia rolls back to the Middle Ages, which is actually on track at the moment in their economy. The worst case scenario is our entire country gets occupied by Russia, which would be done by the tremendous cost of hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers' lives and hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian lives. So we hope like it will not go that far. It's already too far, actually. Like the situation, what is now, is unprecedented since World War II. So it's very, very bad. Yeah, I'm not sure like the scale, like what was like the Vietnam War. It was also pretty bad, yes, but it's really bad now. Like cities are getting literally flattened in the east. I have friends whose apartment is like blown up now. So everybody is hoping, like we have very high spirit and high morale in Ukraine. The armor is new. We keep receiving new armor from the West. a lot of soldiers are now on the front lines, and there are fierce fighting 24 hours all the time. So we hope to recover our territory and then rebuild the country. What will be the outcome now? Nobody knows. Absolutely, like not a single person in the world knows. Even Putin doesn't know what will be the outcome. So it's just we have to do our best in order to restore the truth and to fight with light against the evil. That's what we are doing at the moment.
Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, everyone's praying for Ukraine. I'm reading here, people sending love and hearts on the chat and everything like that. If people want to be able to help in any shape or way, what would you give them as a suggestion? Because a lot of people feel a little bit hopeless when it comes to seeing what's happening and then making an impact or what have you. So what would be something that people could do to...
There are already many options to help, right? It's starting from spreading the word towards pushing your government to provide extra help to Ukraine, and towards some particular like donations or choosing an organization to take care of. Yes, so I think below the video we can provide links to the few options how you guys can participate. Yes, as somebody who is really like here inside, for example, I can tell that as soon as the war started, my consulting and marketing business went down to zero because most of my clients were here. Yes, so I had to restructure my organization of my team towards the war needs, and definitely we will be thankful for the direct support from you. Because like all this like video production, all the support I am providing to like the team members and guys to the front line. I spend 3 to 4 hours a day on different interviews explaining the situation in Ukraine. Like for example, like every day, 3 to 4 hours, different interviews, journalists, guest lectures, like that's my job, that's my mission here. So the direct financial support would be also very, very helpful. We'll provide the link below, and just a few different options. I don't want to occupy everything, and what feels good to you, where you see that your purpose goes, just do everything in this kind of situation when the entire world help us. Every small contribution in different directions, any kind of help, whether it's sharing information, whether it's like providing aid, whether it's like some financial donation, everything helps, everything contributes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be a big celebration when you are finally, have a bit of breathing time and space to be feeling like you're back at home in your own country without any threats. So this
absolutely,
is
I tell you, like I will create such a big party for all the digital nomads around the world. You guys don't even imagine. We will see.
So all the digital nomads in the European area right now, be ready for it. Yes, we will come and support depending on where we are.
It will be worth to fly all the way from New Zealand here.
Okay. Definitely. Does anyone have any questions? I know a lot of people are just saying hearts and love, but yeah, I mean, comment below.
So guys, please use your time here. I dedicate this time to answer everything. Yes, I can go really deep in different things. Within all of these 120 countries that I visited, I've been to dozen like really bad conflict areas, like Kashmir in India, Palestine. Actually, I came to Ukraine from Azerbaijan, where I was visiting Karabakh, which is another tragic story. So I have what to compare with, and this is frightening me because I've seen what can be the outcome and what could be the results of such devastations here.
Wow. So tell me a little bit, I'm not sure if you have the slides ready, but you showed in one of your videos a little bit of the history of Ukraine. And do you have any of that information that you could show or share?
Yeah, so this is important. Yeah, like this is like people question like why did it happen? Yeah, so actually I do have those slides. Just let me check.
Great.
This will take us like maybe 10-15 minutes to tell the 1,000 years of the history, but I think it's worth it.
I have a question for you. So this is from John over in the UK. His question is, please ask Orest if the idea of paying through Airbnb is helping the right people, or is it a scam? A lot of people, just to explain, so Airbnb had a thing saying, you book through Airbnb and it goes directly to the person. Do you know a little bit about this?
Yeah, definitely. So Airbnb is the popular service all around the world, right? Mm-hmm. And definitely, like, it can work, but for under a few conditions. Yes. First of all, you have to be sure that the person is able to collect money from the service. So, because in many cases, like financial services, like stopped working, or they like really started working worse. So if the person doesn't have access to their money, it will mean you just like spend the money and it will freeze somewhere. Yeah. So this should be, I would say, this should be a legit Airbnb place in Eastern Ukraine, where there is devastation. So maybe this apartment doesn't exist even now. But if it was legit and you see the people were doing so, I highly encourage you to check cities of Kharkiv, Mariupol, Mykolaiv, Kherson, and even Kyiv, even the capital, because now people are fleeing from Kyiv. And if the Airbnb was legit, it means that it was like a business for this person. Yeah. So they would definitely will need help, and those are the cities that now nobody would go to stay, definitely. So, and most likely the people already left from those cities. Don't use Airbnb in Western Ukraine because we are fully booked. Like, it's not possible to find a single room all around Western Ukraine. Believe me, it's like overbooked. 2 days ago, I was in Truskavets. It's a city 1 hour drive from Lviv, which is a famous spa resort. Population of 30,000 people, and now there are like another 50,000 visitors. Yes, because they have all these huge hotels, so they like their infrastructure is able to process that many people. Wow. So if you want to contribute with Airbnb style, look for Eastern Ukrainian cities that were like really relying on Airbnb rental as a business. In that case, I would work. But before that, contact the person and make sure this person is in touch and they are able to get the money from there.
So what about the people when they're going to these places like this spa hotel that you're talking about, or resort village? Are they giving discounts and special rates for the people coming in, or is there some kind of relief for those people that are being displaced?
So it's different, yes, because also the financial situation of every family who is fleeing is different. Yeah. This is in the interest of a family and like particular person simply to get like just a normal room in the hotel and simply just to pay a normal market price. Prices are not inflated. In our city, if somebody is inflating prices, he's considered to be a looter. So people don't do it. Yet people don't do it. We keep the things operating as usual, and under usual prices, everything is fully booked. Absolutely. Wait, sorry.
No worries.
People in Ukraine have had money, like especially Kyiv, Kharkiv. There are like no business people and so on, and they found themselves to be at the same situation with everybody else. So they just, maybe they paid for some better accommodation. Now I have some friends of me calling that they are looking just to rent an entire house, and they are able to pay like American rental prices just to be there to stay with their family. Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
So this one, those people who didn't have money, and even it's not enough places for those who want to pay. Every day I keep receiving calls from my friends, of their friends, and so on, that they're looking for the room, but it's simply overbooked everywhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There's so many people that
Then
came over. I mean, they'd be,
yeah,
you can't, and then our people, they must be opening up their homes as well, just taking people
of
in.
course, many
Yeah.
people in our city, they like, they just invite strangers. They go to the train station, they tell, okay, I can get one family for 2 nights. Family comes in, takes shower, relax, and then they continue to Europe or they find some other place. Then, like, if somebody has a car, and many people are traveling by cars, it's in their interest to stay somewhere in the countryside. Like, going to the city my city is packed, like really now. So there, I always tell, if you have a car, go to the countryside, look for some guest house, and you are fine. You don't have to fight the crowds in the city. So the worst situation is for those families who don't have car and don't have money. They are getting here by evacuation trains from eastern cities. And this is like a very tragic experience because, there are more people who want to sit on the train than the capacity of the train. Even without any tickets, you just come inside. Then, because of some strategic hubs can be bombarded already or taken by Russian army, the train has to go, with the safe route. And it's, instead of like 8 hours, it would take 25.
Wow.
It's packed. So once they arrive to Lviv, they are already very exhausted, tired, like stressed. And you have all these crowds, in our train station area. And
they lost everything. I mean, they just literally picked up a bag and left their home.
And it's like, your house can be blown up, and under the bullets, you run to the train station. I cannot believe it. It's so bad. So, and then you, like, after this crazy journey, you arrive to Lviv train station, which is the hub for these evacuation trains and to redirect the traffic. And you have a few options. You can directly on the train station sit on another train, which goes 1 hour to Poland. And then in Poland, the Polish side receive, and then they take care of the refugees there. Or you can go to, to south to Hungary by train, which is longer, which is around 5 hours again. Or you can apply for shelter in Lviv. Yes, but if you do this process, it means you will stay in the refugee camp. And refugee camp, those are like huge premises, like stadiums or some other big venues where you have beds next to each other, crowds, and it's definitely a very uncomfortable position, right? So this is the story what we are facing now. And so far, I must say that our city is doing our best to be able to process all of that.
So then let's go into a little bit of the history, like you were saying,
okay.
And just share a little bit, and then we'll probably wrap up.
So let's do the history. This is important to understand, like, the origin of the war.
Yeah.
So just like one day before the first invasion, everybody's seen the statement on the video of Putin that Ukrainians as the nation don't exist. Ukraine is the failed state. This is in fact part of Russia. Like, that's the story. So he is invading Ukraine to protect Russian ethnical group who call themselves Ukrainians from the Nazi government. That is a puppet government of the capitalist West. Like, as stupid as it sounds, even though our president is Jewish, but he is still a Nazi government. Like, that's the statement of Putin, right? Definitely nobody wants him to come here as a liberator, absolutely. And the fact that those cities in the east are the one that suffered a lot, who are Russian speakers, it just doesn't make any sense at all. Absolutely. Like, it's just the pure aggression, genocide. I don't know how can you call it. Like, this.
Now, do some people feel a little bit, even though they're in Ukraine, because they're Russian speaking and they're so close to Russia, do they feel a little bit more connected in the sense? Do they feel like, oh yeah, I mean, either way, or do they really have a strong identity as being from Ukraine?
after they received shelling of their cities, they are more nationalists than Ukrainians in Western Ukraine. Because even if before you felt like Russia can be your brother, and they are still like maybe mostly watching like Russian pop singers, like really typing in Google in Russian and so on. So there was some kind of affiliation. This is like something I would say that Spanish-speaking Americans, can you believe like this? Yeah. So would Spanish-speaking Americans consider California to become part of Mexico, for example?
Right. Yeah. Okay. It's the same thing.
No. Yeah.
Right.
So that's like that. And once even you had some kind of sentiment, and now the nation that was claiming to be your brother and the best friend is shelling your city, this goes out of mind. Like overnight, many people I know just switch their language to Ukrainian from Russian. So really, it's such a huge shock. It's unbelievable that could happen at all. So he tells this, yes, and now I want to contradict and I want to show exact historical background of all of this story and to prove that Ukrainians are not ethnical group of Russians. That's what he is telling, yeah?
Yeah, so let's demystify the what he's saying here.
So, like in Europe, there are many nationalities around, many different countries. And it's possible to put like three largest like meta groups of people, like the Germanic, which is like Germany, Scandinavians, and British, yeah? Then the Roman or Latin, we would call them Latin. Those are like southern European nations like Spain, Portugal, France, and Italy that share the same origin. And then there are Slavs. Slavs, like mostly in the East, they are the most populated and the largest ethnical subgroup, meta group of peoples in Europe. And those are they originate from the single tribe, which used to live in a more or less place of central Ukraine. And then starting like during the first millennium, they started to spread out, as you see on this map, towards north, towards west, and towards south. So on the west, those Slavic tribes started then like later produced such countries as Poland, Czech Republic, and Slovakia. In the south, Slavic tribes produced all the former Yugoslav countries and Bulgaria. And in the east, in the those places where they remained or even moved west, they later produced Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. Yeah, like that's the start of the story. So approximately at 1000 AD, there was like a East Slavic proto-state, which had the name Kievska Rus, Kiev Ruthenia, with the center in Kiev. Kiev was the capital. Nobody contradicts this fact. It was a huge medieval country, the largest in Europe, one of the most powerful, that was trading in the north with Scandinavians, with Vikings, in the south with Byzantium Empire. On the east were different Asian nomadic tribes. On the west, conventional, normal, Catholic European countries. So the name in school we study in Ukrainian, it calls Kievska Rus. In English is like Kiev Ruthenia or Kiev Rus, we call it, yeah, in the Middle Ages, with the center in Kiev. There were like different minor puppet states, minor kingdoms, and on the previous map you see that there were like provinces of this great almost the empire. In the north, there was one of those provinces was a Moscow Duchy, like a Moscow kingdom. Something important to understand here is that Moscow was not even a settlement until 12th century at all. Kiev, during the entire Middle Ages, Kiev was the largest metropolis of this part of the world. like with 50,000 people.
That's amazing. When you see it like this and you see it on a timeline and you see the development that's there and you're showing Moscow and there's like nothing even there. That's crazy to even fathom, you know?
Yes. So let me continue. And this is the fact. Like if you go to Wikipedia, you see the year when Moscow was founded. Kyiv was founded in the 5th century. So yeah, as comparing to Moscow. So in the middle of the 13th century, Mongol invasion happened on those lands. We know the Genghis Khan, the Mongol Empire, the largest empire in the history of the world. So on the west, they stretched all the way to Kievska Rus, to Kiev, Ruthenia. They devastated eastern and southern parts of this country because geographically, east and south is a steppe, is the arid steppe. North and west is like a woodland, similar to Western Europe.
Gotcha.
And the largest portion of population remained living in the west, like on those areas where you could see. Kyiv was demolished, and the center, like the successor of this Kievska Rus, moved to the west. Lviv, the city where I am now, became the capital of this Galician kingdom, which was the successor of Kievska Rus. So the prince moved from Kyiv to Lviv, not to Lviv, to Halych, but later Lviv became the biggest city over here. Also, some tribes moved to the north. So because Mongols couldn't reach the north, some tribes moved to the north around Moscow and started to live and develop their own identity and culture all the way up there between the marshlands and between the dense forests, which was not native geographical position for Mongol like nomadic tribes, right? And in the west, because it's like more closer to Europe, we have mountains over here, like they could not really handle their time. The east and south remained devastated for a couple of centuries, and there were like nomadic tribes running back and forth. Later on, most of those territories in 1400s were under control of Lithuanian kingdom. So Lithuania, they're also very interesting like people, because they were like the last country in Europe that adopted Christianity, all the way in the 13th century. And they took Ukrainian script because in order to be able to write, yes. And in general, like they mixed with the local population a lot. So I mean, this country was existing on those kind of borders. You could see in the south and east, you can see on the map, it's still written wild fields. So it was mostly arid steppe with nomadic tribes running back and forth. Later on, this Lithuanian kingdom was united with Polish kingdom, creating Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth.
Wow.
And yeah, and around 1600s, it was one of the most powerful countries in Europe in general. It was like almost like semi-empire. Many Polish people, they still have this statement, od morza do morza. I am fluent in Polish, by the way. So they have the statement from sea to the sea. You see, like from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. This is like a very strong statement people use sometimes. And this was the country with approximately similar population of Poles, of Lithuanians, and Ukrainians. The problem was that Ukrainians didn't have the same political representation and power as Lithuanians and Polish. That's why many Ukrainians started to flee this country because of the less opportunities in the society in general. And on the area of the wild field, yes, they created paramilitary units made of Cossacks, and that's how they started to build their own country there, like in the wild fields. It's like on the absolutely different way of life, not staying in the cities, you know, having military camps, moving around fast, fighting between Poland in the north and against Ottoman Empire in the south. Through some time, this is how these Cossacks look like. It's a very famous picture. And yesterday I was giving lecture to a Taiwanese media. There was like a forum, the geopolitical forum, and the best way for me to explain them who were Cossacks was comparing them with Japanese samurais. So we have the same relation. So the picture of Cossacks are like tough people, like very free spirit, you know, they are fighting for the motherland, they know the truth, you know, this kind of, they feel dignity. This is the feeling. And when those Cossacks started to become stronger and stronger, they founded their own state in the middle of the present day Ukraine. So and they start also, like, if you follow the arrows, in the middle of the 17th century, they started the liberation war against Poland to liberate historical Ukrainian lands where like the most population were Ukrainians. They went pretty deep inside the country, but eventually lost the five-year war, were rolled back, and found themselves in the very tough position. On the west, you have Poland, with which you just had a war. In the south, you have an Ottoman Empire, and in the east, you have already expanding Moscow Kingdom. So in such situation, in order not to, you know, to continue survive, you have to find one friend at least. Yeah. So they could not make a treaty with Poland because they just lost a war. And even though mentally Polish people are very similar to us, they are Catholic instead of Orthodox who are Ukrainians. In the south, they were like Ottoman Empire, Muslim people, like out of question. And in the east, you have somebody with whom you share like some similar roots all the way back 700 years ago, with whom you never had a war, and with whom you have the same faith, Orthodox Christianity. So they signed a protectorate treaty with the Moscow Kingdom. And this was the beginning.
So this was the very beginning of this union,
Correct.
if you will, where in Putin's mind, he feels like, well, it kind of back then was part of us. So therefore right now, So
listen to me, you will have the picture even more clear. So from our historical perspective now, when we look back, we treat this event as like the biggest mistake in the history, when they signed the protectorate with the Moscow Kingdom after losing the war to Poland in the middle of the 17th century. So, and since that time, Moscovites and later Russia started to have more and more influence on the Ukrainian lands. It's all started with the limitations of Cossack representation in the army. You know, then no teachers in school can talk Ukrainian language. And during like those 300 years, there were many different like laws, limitations that on one side were assimilating Ukrainians with Russians who live on this period, because the Ukrainians who living in the West, and you see that it was under Poland, and I am like in the West, for me, Russian language is the same foreign as Polish or English, for example. Yeah,
right.
There are like different story. So this was the start of all this problem that we are having. And this is the like different layers of expansion of Moscow Duchy, starting from the late Middle Ages all the way until modern time. So you see from the tiny dark green square somewhere in the middle of nowhere, they were expanding. And by the beginning of the 18th century, the country was already powerful enough to rival global European powers. In order to do this, St. Petersburg, the new capital, was founded in the Moscow Kingdom, getting access to the Baltic coast. Yeah, getting access to the Baltic coast in the northwest, near Estonia. The problem there was that in order to get out to the open ocean from St. Petersburg. You have to go through the Baltic Sea, where you have already established powerful countries like Germany, like Poland, like Sweden, like Denmark, Britain eventually. Like, it's not so easy. So it became vital for survival of Moscow Kingdom to get access to the Black Sea, which through Turkey put themselves into the Mediterranean, and Mediterranean was the center of the world, right? By then. So it's much easier, much faster. Like, why would you go all the way around?
Right,
so
makes sense.
It's a historical, geopolitical like importance to do this, and that's why they were always pushing south so much more. And since there was a large Ukrainian population, they had to do something with this, killing, deporting, assimilating, like through centuries. Yes. So once this country like became powerful enough and they got access to the sea, in 1771, Moscow Kingdom decides to rewrite the history. They state that this is the Russian Empire, and the Russian Empire is the successor of this country, Kievska Rus. And for the normal person who doesn't know it, it makes sense, right? But
well, to be 100% honest, I had also had the understanding that Putin feels like it was his in the past. And so really what you're saying is actually, it's the complete opposite. So in his picture of the world, he believes in this. Yeah, he believes it, but it's not accurate. This is what his thoughts are, and this is what he's trying to portray to the world. Like, well, technically, you know, this used to be, you know, and meanwhile, right?
Correct. So he believes in this, and Russian Empire. Even like if you go to the Wikipedia and you type Russian Empire, you will see that the Russian Empire took the name Russian Empire in 1721, which is over 700 years later than the Kievska Rus itself was already a thriving civilization. You understand this, yeah? Using that historical position and that power, they rewrote the history. They rewrote the history. And now at this war, what we are facing, I see that it's not only like the survival war for Ukrainians. This is our chance to restore the historical truth. And we will see how it will happen. I know for many people it sounds wild, like you talk about history, culture, but I mean, I'm a digital nomad. You know, I have the iPhone and I'm doing this live from my Apple computer, and the internet speed now, even the country is at war, is 100 megabits per second, you know, but this is worth living for, and this is the essence why we really exist, right? The culture, all these things. So later on, where was I? Later on, like Russian Empire was expanding, getting stronger, more influential, and by 1900s, that was the map of the Russian Empire. So it stretched all the way east to Siberia, south to Central Asian countries, Caucasus, but definitely the Western Front, the Ukrainian part, like always was pushing the most resistance. And it makes sense because the closer you move into Europe, the more densely populated it gets, the more interests are overlapping there, while moving to the east was always much easier.
Sure.
So so this one. And then there was a First World War. Russia experienced many problems, and there is revolution in Russia. Yes, so the Tsar is overthrown, and the Bolsheviks, the communists, are getting power. The entire country is shaking, and this is the chance for other like ethnical groups within the empire to use the chance to get independence. Normal way, like entire Europe at the present day borders was pretty much formed after World War I when major empires collapsed. Yes, that's the story of all Eastern European countries: Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, Romania, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ukrainians, being like a significant nation within Europe, also had their right for self-identification. This is the map of Ukrainian ethnical distribution on these territories of Eastern Europe after World War I. So if you compare it with, let's say, modern borders of Ukraine, it's overlapping 85%, right?
Yeah.
This makes sense. Even though here you can see that this territory is larger than the borders of Ukraine, because there is a large section of Kuban, of this like southeastern part, which is not part of Russia. And, you know, it goes really beyond the borders of Ukraine. Ukraine never claimed in history that those are our lands. You know, we are the underdog. We are the nation that never started aggressive war in the world whatsoever. But considering this situation, there was an uprising in different cities around Ukraine, forum, conference. Ukrainian National Republic is declared in 1918. The same happened in Poland, the same happened in Czech Republic, the same happened in Romania and all the Baltic states. It was like the spring of nations in Europe of that time. Unfortunately for Ukrainians, we didn't manage to keep the independence because Soviets pushed from the east, Polish people pushed from the west. The country dissolved. And this is the story of Ukraine in the interwar period. You can see that the central and eastern part is incorporated to the Soviet Union. Largest portion of western part is part of Poland. And then there are a few smaller exclaves belonging to Czechoslovakia and to Romania. So that's the borders of Ukraine after World War II. Then
that is wild. So that's also why Crimea, at one point, Russia kind of was ruling and reigning there. And so they occupied that land.
Crimea got influenced by Russia. I will tell you when. You see, in 1762, okay, so in the end of the 18th century, Russia got Crimea. So they got it as the outcome of Russian-Ottoman wars. And that's how they secured the access to the Black Sea.
Right. And that's why it's such a, location, geographical
who
location.
Who controls Crimea, that person controls the Black Sea. Like this, you see, it goes with the peninsula all the way in the middle of the sea. Mm-hmm.
The big question is going to be is what's going to happen now? Like, I'm wondering with all of this history and all of this, everything going on, like.
I am almost done.
Go ahead. I'm good.
I know how to process, but I try to be very simplistic in my explanations for people to understand. Yeah,
absolutely. So this is great because so many of us, we learn our history from our countries. We don't necessarily learn your history. So this is fantastic. Mm-hmm.
So this is the story of the interwar period. Mm-hmm. And this is another, like a terrible part of our history. Between 1932 and 33, there was a genocide of Ukrainians. So the Soviet occupied areas were there was we called Holodomor, which is genocide by starvation. So artificial famine was created. People in villages were taking everything they had. They could not leave the village. And within 2 days, there are different calculations. Between 4 and 8 million people died. Can you believe it? In 2 years, yeah. You read this, Holodomor, Ukrainian genocide, 1932-33. And those areas, you can see that central eastern part, which I want to remind you were part of Soviet Union, comparing to the West, which was Polish.
Yeah.
This map shows us decline of population. So everything what is dark orange received over 25% of the decline population within 2 years.
Wow.
On the West, as you can see, there was no decline because these areas were part of European countries. In the Soviet, it was like brutal killing, mass graves, and that's all. In the let's say 1930, population of Ukraine was like third in Europe. It was like highly populated area, way beyond Spain, way beyond it. Probably Italy and France and UK had bigger, and Germany had bigger population. The rest, Ukraine was just prevailing, like really. So we only recovered our population in 1970 because of this. So this is a typical picture on the streets of Kharkiv. People were just like dying on the street because of starvation.
Yeah, it's awful.
And it's awful. It's very awful. Yeah. And once you have such massive death, I mean, there are new spaces. Some people migrate from Soviet Union, from other part. Population gets mixed, and thus, like, you know, you can push even further. So then there was a World War II. Soviet Union won. It was a winning country in World War II, one off. So they got extra land in different parts of Eastern Europe. The sphere of influence moved to the West, and they started to form republics within Soviet Union based on the national identity, right? So that's how the borders, the present borders of Ukraine were formed. On this map, you can see there was the green section of Ukrainian heartland, which was under Russian influence since 17th century, you remember, yes, between the Cossack Treaty. And then some of these parts in the West came from Poland, from Czechoslovakia, and from Hungary. And Crimea was attached in the 50s, in the 1952. So this is how the country was divided in the interwar period, and that's how it connected within present-day borders. And Ukraine was the second largest and most vital republic within the Soviet Union after Russia. Yeah, in terms of economy, in terms of population, in terms of contribution towards the progress, in terms of representatives in the Communist Party, and so on. Like it was like very, very important. So when Ukraine became independent in the present day borders in 1991, it was like, come on, like we don't want to let you go, because Ukraine was like a jewel in the crown of the Russian Empire. Like it's like India for United Kingdom, like Brazil for Portugal, like Netherlands for like East Indies, like Indonesia for Netherlands, right? So very, very important, vital land for the survival of the empire. So we became.
It was a massive loss for them. They were like at a massive loss with all of that access to the sea.
Absolutely, you see, yeah. And then, you know, but Ukraine became independent not as a result of the revolt. So there was a communist party in Ukraine. They see that Soviet Union is about to crash. They all, you know, changed their red flags to Ukrainian flags, and like, okay, let's vote for independence. You know, we are out of the trouble. We have to like secure our status quo. So because this independence was not a result of like resistance, fighting, fears, all the progress in the country was going very, very slow on the initial years of independence. We had a revolution in 2004 where I participated. Actually, I was 16 years old, and this was a peaceful revolution. So this was a revolution against violating voting. So basically, pro-Russian candidate lost, but since he was in power, he faked the votes. People told no. We had a revolution, not a single person dies. After 1 month, we have another elections, and pro-Western president won.
Wow.
In 2014.
So it was done very nicely.
Yeah. In 2014, we have another revolution, but that is a revolution because our president, 2 weeks before the signing association agreement with the European Union, which was the official foreign policy of the country, decided not to sign it and sign some economic treaty with Russia. Again, people stand up, we have a revolution, but that time it was already more tense. The climax was street shootings of 200 people. So within 2 days, 225 people were shot by some special elite forces. And that was out of our mind. You know, Ukrainians so peaceful. When we were watching on the TV that in Paris, the crowd is like turning cars and breaking shops, it was already too much for us. Like how can you do it? So very, very peaceful. And now you see people getting shot on the street, entire country stand up. In 1 day, we swept the government. He fled to Russia. During the transition period of the new government who was taking into place, Russia, using the vulnerability of situation, occupies Crimea and starts the war in the east of Ukraine in Donbass. So there was already a little bit of blood, and the change in the society was much bigger than 10 years before. Yeah. However, we lost land. We started to become a country in a state of war with Russia. Crimea is like really hard. Was really hard to get back, and we had like this blood, like this pain in the east with the daily casualties. So people don't remember it, but since 2014, there is an active phase of war in the east.
Yeah, that's something we don't actually realize or even know that is ongoing. Like we just, you hear about it and this is the thing in the news, and then all of a sudden it disappears and you think, oh, everything's okay. They just occupy that piece of land without realizing, like I had no idea there's still conflict. No idea.
So, but since it was already a bigger shock for the society, pro-Western movements start to move faster, within 2 years, in 2016, all the Ukrainians started to travel in the Western countries without visa, just with the passport. Different, like all the cheap airlines, from Lviv before the war, I could fly all around Europe within 2 hours for 30 euros. No problem. So,
and I guess, Russia and Putin specifically, he doesn't want that. He doesn't want that affiliation with Europe.
And we started to the official policy of Ukraine that we are joining NATO, that we are joining EU, we are on track. And from year to year, we are adapting standards and the legislature of Ukraine towards the Western standards, right? So the country is drifting away more and more and more and more. And using a chance, or maybe getting prepared enough through all of this time. Now we have this. This is like a very, very serious full-scale invasion. Nobody could believe something like this can happen in Europe in the 21st century, with thousands of casualties within 2 weeks, with tremendous airstrikes, flattering cities. It's unbelievable. When you see what you see on the TV, you cannot believe this can happen. It feels like a World War II again. Can you believe Kharkiv, the city in the east, with like amazing city with the efficient underground system, 3 lines, subways, and you have like rockets coming and just bombing
and destroying it. Yeah, it's unbelievable, and the whole world is feeling that, and everyone is so on edge right now, not knowing which way it's going to go, or when it's going to end.
That's guys is our story. But if you want a conclusion from me, I can tell that this is a historical path of one nation towards independence. It's our way. Freedom is not free. You have to fight for it. Many things, like if you look on from the perspective of 1,000 years, they don't necessarily make sense, but at least you can explain them. Yes, and that's how it's always possible to go much deeper. So what I'm witnessing now is incredible. It's something we will be telling to our grandchildren if we will survive through this. It's something that pupils in school will study for the next 100 years, like really, really. And I think there is such a high spirit we have in Ukraine that it feels like I feel like really I belong here. You know, I don't want to be anywhere else but here doing what I do at the moment. Absolutely. And once we are over it, everybody it's like this will eventually put in the end in the Ukrainian question. Like that's how I see it. The question is, what will be the outcome? We will see.
All right. So we have one question that's maybe or maybe not you can answer, but David Monroe is asking if you can explain or say anything about the stories that we're hearing about biolabs in Ukraine. Do you know anything of this?
Biolabs? What's that?
The Americans apparently have these biolabs where they're doing different testings on maybe viruses and different things like that. And apparently there are some in Ukraine, and I think they have admitted to that. So do you know anything on that?
I never heard. Like, I'm transparent. I never heard about this. Absolutely. Sorry. Yeah, no.
No worries. I mean, it's just starting to be out in the news right now. So I think this is what
there is so much fake around, like all around. You know, I don't want to tell that we are like 100% right in every detail, but the things are really obvious. There can be some minor, like for example, I don't know exactly what are the casualties of Ukrainian army. Like I don't know. And we don't know exactly what are their casualties, but like large portion of truth are pretty evident for me.
I mean, if you just look at the overall history of what you just explained and kind of the pathway it's going, you can see the importance of them wanting to have Ukraine and the importance of them having you guys over towards more European ways versus, you know, their Soviet kind of ways. So it all makes sense. And I don't know, like I've spoke to a lot of people in the past and they're like, oh yeah, you know, when it was all kind of USSR, you know, everything was good. And some people actually have this like painted picture of it being kind of the good old days. I wonder how that, you know, because I sometimes wonder as well, like, will he take over? You know, he's going to want this and then he's going to want that. And he's not just Ukraine, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you know, like if for those people who tell like, yeah, it was USSR, it's like, it's all the same. Just take a look on Belarus and Ukraine. From the bold point of view, those should be like very, very similar countries. They are same, the westernmost part of the former Soviet Union. The density population is the same. Okay, Ukraine is 2 times bigger, but density is the same. Infrastructure is the same. The origin is the same. Like why Belarus is another North Korea, and why there are always revolutions in Ukraine? Like there is some difference.
The mentality is very different, and it's
absolutely
very obvious.
Absolutely.
I mean, I went to Belarus, and it was eye-opening and shocking how it was just different, a very, very different feeling than being in Ukraine for sure. But no, okay, well we'll wrap it all up. And just thank you for taking the time, you know, and answering questions. Everyone go follow Orest on his YouTube channel, orestzub.com. He's sharing there, you know, if not daily, but pretty much to keep an eye out on what's happening. It's just nice to have a perspective from somebody within the country and share light on everything. And yeah, the history lesson was phenomenal. So thanks for taking the time. And for everybody watching live, thanks for joining. As always, make sure you all subscribe and give us a thumbs up. And
thank you guys. It was, I can tell it was a pleasure because, you know, like it's hard to talk about those things, but we have to talk about them. We have to show the light, to show the truth, to explain. And understanding that for the last 350 years, somebody else was deciding what is right and what is wrong. It's important to tell like our point, our position, and to explain this. And now when the entire attention of the world is on us, this is the chance to really stand up front, to tell what's happening, to speak, yes, and to show that we deserve we deserve to be like an integral part of a normal civilized Western world, because we really are, and we feel like this. And
yeah, 100%.
this
I think everyone realizes that. It's just everyone is really worried about having a third world war, and nobody wants that. And so that's why everyone's like on eggshells right now with what they can do to help Ukraine, but everyone wants to help Ukraine.
For those who are worried about World War III, I can tell that this work has already started. What is now is on an unprecedented level, how things are interconnected already globally. And for those people who think like, oh, it's something further, it's away, it's beyond the NATO border and so on, I would tell that guys in the West, like, you should be the first interested in protecting and helping us to resist. Because if Ukraine falls in this war, Russian tanks will be knocking the door of NATO. And that's not definitely the position you want to be. Just, I showed you the size of Ukraine. Like, just think about this. If they will manage to go 1,000 kilometers to the border, will they manage to do another 200 to Warsaw?
That's it. It's like when people have power, it's never enough. They always want more and more and more. And so to think that, oh, we're just going to do this and the world can watch and be like, okay, are they going to sacrifice Ukraine? And it is no, then it's going to be this, then it's going to be that. And people don't want to think that way, because who wants to think that way? Everyone wants to think positive, but the reality of it is unfortunately the ladders.
In Ukraine, we have a statement or proverb: if you let the pig inside your house, it will end up on your table. And that's exactly the story about this. Yes, it's the history already showed so many times that if the evil is growing, it's very, very important to close it on the initial phase. Otherwise, it will continue just growing and growing and growing. At the moment, we are already too far. Anyway, like, it's only 2 weeks, guys, but it's already too far. So how many other thousands of people have to die in order to stop this? We will see. What I can tell that this is the interest of the entire civilization to finish this as soon as possible.
Yes, I agree. Okay. Yeah, people are just coming in and commenting, kind of expressing the same thoughts. So, all right, it's a wrap, you guys. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Orest, for being a part of our YouTube channel, and we will see you in person next time to celebrate in Lviv. Let's just put it like that. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. I hope it was useful for you. Below the video, we provide all the links to my contacts and the way you can act at the moment to support us. And I wish you all the best. I wish you peace. Just remember that Ukrainians now act as the shield of Western civilization, and we are fighting for the peace in the world, covering this by our bodies first. That's super important. And thank you for the support.
Awesome. Okay. We'll see you next time, Orest.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.